Once upon a time, there lived a hunter named Emeka. Emeka sold meat in the village and stood out amongst all the other meat sellers in the village. His meat stand was always surrounded by customers from both far and near. Other hunters who sold meat envied him. They wondered why his meat always tasted different. Emeka's meat was the best in the village. Everything about it was so different and perfect. Whenever celebrations came up, the villagers always got excited. They knew the king would get meat from Emeka. Some of them attended celebrations just to have a taste of Emeka's meat. A feast came up at the palace, and as usual, the king ordered meat from Emeka. The villagers danced around and danced even more after eating Emeka's meat. It was as if he injected dopamine into the meat he sold. Sadly, after the celebration, 3 villagers were declared missing. The next day, the villagers got worried. When will this end? They said to themselves. The families of those who were declared missing ran to the king. The king also got worried. He sent out guards to search for them. They went through the village and even searched neighboring communities, but they were nowhere to be found. At the market, one of the hunters named Chidi, who sold meat close to Emeka, asked them, "Emeka, how come your meat always tastes different from ours? Do you have a secret recipe or something?" Emeka looked at Chidi. He smiled and said, "It's God, oh, my brother," and continued doing the work. Chidi gave off an envious smile and went back to his meat stand. Another celebration was coming up, which was the meat festival. This was one of the best celebrations hosted in the village. Every year, the hunter with the best meat received a grand prize from the king. Emeka had won this prize for 5 consecutive years. Everyone expected him to win again. While the villagers and hunters were making preparations for the upcoming meat festival, Chidi wasn't. He made up his mind not to participate in the festival that year. He wanted to keep an eye on Emeka and find out what he did differently. Chidi watched Emeka from a distance. He took note of his every move and even the people he spoke to. He didn't find anything suspicious. He only noticed 2 men who Emeka secretly spoke to. He felt like they supplied Emeka with meat, so he took note of them in order to make them his suppliers also. When the meat festival came, the villagers danced and had a lot of fun. A lot of them came without eating. They were ready to fill up their stomachs with meat from every hunter. Chidi observed everything from a corner, his eyes mostly fixed on Emeka. He took a plate, walked to Emeka's meat stand, and asked for meat. Emeka cheerfully gave him meat. As Chidi turned to return to his seat and eat his meat, he spotted the 2 men who he saw Emeka talking to a few days ago. They exchanged signals with Emeka. Chidi became suspicious. One of the maidens, named Ifeoma, after eating and dancing out her whole energy, went into the bushes to ease herself. When she got done and was about going back to the festival, her mouth and nose got covered with a handkerchief. She fell unconscious and was carried by 2 men. Chidi, who followed them from the meat festival, was shocked. He almost shouted. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. While one of the men carried Ifeoma, the other one looked around to make sure no one was watching them. Chidi, who was inquisitive, followed them. When they got to the warehouse, where they kept people who they kidnapped, they felt like someone was following them. They quietly dropped Ifeoma, who was unconscious, and chased after the person who followed them. Chidi noticed that they were coming for him and ran like his whole life depended on it. Unfortunately for him, he got caught and beaten up by the 2 men. He was also taken to the warehouse where they kept people who had been kidnapped. When Chidi was thrown into the warehouse, he saw Ifeoma, who still laid unconscious, along with a man and 2 children. "So this is what you people do. You're responsible for all the missing villagers, kidnappers, animals," Chidi said while shouting. One of the men got angry and gave him a dirty slap. They kicked him and trampled upon him. After the celebration, Ifeoma's family realized that she didn't come home. They went to all her friends' houses and round the village to search for her. They feared that she might have gone missing. Unfortunately, that was the case. Ifeoma was declared missing in the village. Her mother fell to the ground and shouted. No one ever came back after going missing. Ifeoma's mother lost hope. Her daughter was gone. At the warehouse, the men called Emeka and told him that one of his fellow hunters got kidnapped too. Emeka wondered who it was and rushed over to see the person. When he got there, he laughed upon seeing Chidi. He wasn't surprised when he saw him. Chidi was too inquisitive. Emeka looked at the people who were kidnapped and told the two men to kill the female children that were there. Females are sweeter. We will use them for the next market day, Emeka said. The children cried. They got scared. Everyone begged Emeka to spare the children. But Emeka was wicked and hard at heart. He didn't listen to any of their pleading. He turned to Chidi and said, I'll deal with you. He ordered his accomplices to ensure Chidi got the beating of his life before being killed. And they did just that. 3 weeks later, Ifeoma's family decided to conduct a burial for her. Her mother ordered meat from Emeka and asked him to supply it a day before the burial. Emeka went to the warehouse and dragged Ifeoma like an animal. Your burial is tomorrow. Come and feed your family. These were Ebuka's words to Ifeoma. Ifeoma cried, not just because she was about to die, but because she was about to be fed to her family as late. She pleaded with him not to do it, but Ebuka paid no attention to her pleading and stabbed her. He ordered his men to butcher her and deliver to her family. Chidi didn't believe what he saw. He couldn't believe that the meat which the entire village thought was the best was just innocent villagers who got kidnapped. He cried because he had also fallen prey. He prayed to God every day for a release. Every other person got killed except Chidi. He knew he was next. When Emeka's accomplices went to deliver meat to Ifeoma's family, Chidi thought of a way to escape. He moved around and realized that the only escape route was a window which was very high above the ground. He hurriedly mounted tables on top of each other and got to the window. Jumping down from the window was a problem because of how high it was. Chidi had no choice but to jump down. He ended up breaking his leg, but what mattered to him was that he escaped. He ran into the bush immediately and ran to a village which was very far from theirs. The next day, which was late Ifeoma's burial day, Chidi disguised and went back to his village. He went straight to Ifeoma's house. Upon getting there, he saw that they were about to start sharing food with the meat. Stop, Chidi said with a loud voice while running towards the gathering. Don't eat the meat. That is your daughter. Ifeoma's mother picked offense and slapped Chidi. How dare you say such as my daughter's burial? Ifeoma's mother shouted at him at the top of her voice. Her other family members gathered to throw Chidi out. Please hear me out. I know what I'm saying. Chidi pleaded with them. Ifeoma's family members gave Chidi no chance to talk. Rather, they beat him up the more and threw him out. The two men who were Emeka's accomplices saw Chidi and ran after him. Chidi took off to the market square. He ran so fast because he knew that he would die this time for sure if the men caught him. Evil man, kidnapper, monster, Chidi said to Emeka as he ran into the market square. Chidi had been missing for a while. The villagers were surprised to see him. They also wondered what was going on with him because of the way he shouted. Chidi stood in front of Emeka's meat stand, raising an alarm and pointing at him. Emeka was furious. When his two accomplices got to the market square, it was already late. Chidi went on his knees and cried. This man is evil. You thought you would get away with this, Chidi said. Emeka, whose meat stand was surrounded by customers, smiled with a butcher knife in his right hand. He acted like he didn't know what Chidi was talking about. Chidi went on to explain to the villagers what happened. He revealed how Emeka was responsible for all the villagers who had gone missing. He also told them how Emeka killed them and sold them as meat. Emeka's customers who were in front of his meat stand, got terrified upon hearing what Chidi said and stepped back. Those who already bought meat and held it in their hands threw it back at him. The villagers couldn't believe what they heard. Ifeoma's family members, who also got to the scene, shouted. Her mother rolled on the floor and cried. So it's true. You killed my daughter and sold her to me as meat. How could you be so wicked? Ifeoma's mother said while crying. The villagers were disappointed in Emeka. Some felt disgusted and started vomiting, knowing that they always ate Emeka's meat. Emeka dropped his butcher knife and tried running away, but the villagers caught him and held him. More villagers gathered, and the families of everyone who had gone missing went on their knees and cried upon hearing the news. They held Emeka by his clothes and asked him to return their family members. The villagers got angry and beat Emeka up badly. They treated him like the animal he was and took him to the king. The king locked him up for a week, thinking about the best punishment to give him. Chidi, of course, identified his accomplices and ensured they were also locked up. The king gave his sentence after a week of the criminals receiving beatings and torment in the prison. He ordered that Emeka's accomplices be fed to catfishes. Emeka, on the other hand, was taken to the deadliest river and tied to a rock. When it reached dawn, crocodiles came out and feasted on him. After the whole incident, the villagers decided to stop eating meat for a while. Chidi was known as the most courageous man in the village, and the king ordered that all of Emeka's properties be given to Chidi. After 2 months of being the most famous and courageous man in the village, Chidi went missing.